Oh, okay. All right, we're in.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all for joining us on Joy in the Journey podcast. It is our very, very, very only our second episode. That's it. Second episode. Aren't you guys excited? I am so excited to bring on Amelia, which I met on Facebook because we shared similar stories for our sons in regards to both of them having Down syndrome. And I'm just so glad that she was able and open to come on our show today to share her story of her son who has trisomy 21. So, everyone, welcome, Amelia. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Um, you're welcome. Can you start with telling us where you're from and your son's name and age?
We are from San Antonio, Texas, and my son is 5.5, and his name is Alexander.
Alexander, awesome. I'm going to read off the first question. Can you tell us about your journey as a parent of a child with Down syndrome?
Um, has its ups and downs. It was a surprise diagnosis at birth. Um, a happy surprise though. Um,
Oh,
yeah. My husband has never met anyone with Down syndrome until now, and so it was a big shock to him.
wow.
I had a friend growing up. She has Down syndrome, and so I kind of knew a little bit about it, but still not a whole lot.
Right.
So we immediately did a lot of research, and um, it's so far it's been amazing.
Awesome. So, you had no clue when you were pregnant. Did they give you any indication at all that you could potentially have a child with Down syndrome, or it was just completely surprise at birth?
It was a big surprise. He didn't have
Okay.
any heart conditions or anything like that.
Okay. Because with Christian, they told us we were in like the 76th percentile, but we never did the testing to find out if he actually had it for sure. We just kind of like wanted to go on with it and just if it happened, it happened. We were learning along the way. So just to hear that it was a complete surprise to you guys, at birth. Um, is amazing. Like, so I want to go on to ask, how were yours and your husband's first initial reactions? I know you said shocked, but was there any other feelings? Did you guys have similar feelings? Were your feelings totally opposite? Can you just kind of like go into that a little bit?
For my husband, he kept asking the doctor, "How sure are you?" And they were like, "Well, we're pretty sure because he has all the markers for it, like the
Right.
physical markers." And he was like, "Well, I won't believe it until you do the actual test and then tell us for sure." And
Right.
then for me, I knew like as soon as he was born, I could see his features, and I said, "Oh, well, where does this come from? Where did these features come from?" And then when they told us, I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense."
Right.
So, and I wasn't sad or disappointed, but I was worried about the unknown, as I'm sure
Yeah.
a lot of parents are not
Yeah.
sure, like how he's going to be, how he's going to grow up, and things like
Right.
that. So,
Yes, similar feelings to us. Is he your only child? Do you have kids before him or after him?
I have an 18-year-old, and my husband has two teenage boys as well.
Nice. And how were they, accepting of the news, or were they shocked? Were they scared? How did they take the news?
My 18-year-old was 13 at the time, and he just loved his brother. I mean, we have
Oh,
pictures of him holding him after he was born, and he just stares into his face the whole time, and he
oh,
didn't care. Yeah.
right.
The other two boys aren't really they're not really kid friendly kind of teenagers. I don't know how to explain it, but
Yeah.
um they're just like let the parents take care of him kind of attitude. Um,
Understandable. So you have all boys?
yes.
Nice. Um, Next question is, what were your initial thoughts and feelings when you first learned that your child had Down syndrome? We went over that. How has your child's diagnosis impacted your family and daily life?
I feel like it's enriched our lives and really made us learn how to slow down because
Yeah,
um, you can't really rush things with
that's
a
good.
child with Down syndrome because it's on their time and it seems to be a leisurely time for Alexander anyway. Um, yeah, it's really taught us, and it's given me a better perspective of just people in general. I used to be less of a people person, and now having him, he kind of opened my eyes to all abilities,
Right.
to see everybody as a person.
Right. I could relate to you when you say you weren't really a people person, because I was just sharing with my husband the other day that I too wasn't really a people person. But yeah, I can agree with you when it comes to, like, just accepting everyone in regards to their special abilities. And then what you said just a little bit ago, it made you slow down. I could
Mhm.
totally relate to that because we in this life nowadays live in a fast-paced world. And
Mhm.
just reflecting back on Christian's journey, um as his mom, I was always like, well, when is he going to do this, when is he going to do that? He hasn't done this yet. Oh my gosh, my kids did this, but he's not there yet. So yeah,
Mhm.
definitely slowing down and just allowing him to go at his own pace. Once I learned to kind of like chill, it's his journey, he's not going to be like the others. Then I was able to just like enjoy him and enjoy life a little bit more, and not be so caught up in when is he going to do this, when is he going to do that, because it could be like a time where, well, all kids with Down syndrome, they start walking between this and this. It's not like that.
No.
They're all different. They all go to the potty at different times. They all, crawl at different times. They all learn to eat at different times and things like that. Christian's almost 6. Next month he'll be 6, and he still doesn't go to the potty by himself. And that is like so hard for us because, all of our kids went to potty when they were a year or a year and a half, 2 years old. And then to see that he's almost 6 and not going to the bathroom, it's just like, all right. So as a
Yeah.
parent, I'm sure it's kind of like, um in a sense, like wondering when he's going to go, but can't really get frustrated because it's in his timing. So how do
Mhm.
you handle like challenges when it comes to stuff like that?
Right now we're on spring break, so we're working on pottying too. Um, we've we've kind of done like every hour to 2 hours, putting him on the potty, and we just kind of we also just watch him for signs of if he's going to go, because he won't tell us. He's
Yes.
still nonverbal, so
Right.
sometimes I get frustrated. Um, then I just say, okay, go to daddy because I need to go cool off. And
Yeah.
then we come back and revisit it. Sometimes he gets mad at me too. Like I'm not trying to be mean or frustrate him, but I can
Right.
see like this is not what I want from you, mom. So you need to
Right.
go away.
I get it. Trust me, I get it. All right, moving on to the next question. Um, what are some of the joys and rewards of parenting a child with Down syndrome?
All of the hugs. He loves to hug,
Yes.
the snuggles.
Yes.
Yeah.
100 times
Um,
a day I hear, "Mom, mom," a hug, a kiss from Christian.
oh, that's cute.
Yeah. So I guess
Oh,
it's very similar, huh?
yeah. And I like that he and I have our own way of communicating because, like I said, he's nonverbal. So I can communicate so much with him. And even his dad is like, what does he want? What is he doing? And I'm
Right.
like, it's charades. You have to figure it out. And I can pick up on it a lot of times. And that's just our little secret bonding, I feel like.
I love
It's really
that.
awesome.
Is he totally nonverbal or does he speak a little
Um,
bit? Does he use some sign language?
he'll sign. He understands a lot of sign, and he can repeat it back. He's just lazy, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and as far as verbal, he can say mama, he can say a couple of other words, but he just doesn't like to say them.
Yeah.
I'll try and get him to like, hey, say this, but it's like, nope, it's on his own time.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure if you guys have this, in Texas, where I'm sure you guys probably do, but can you speak to the importance of early intervention and therapy for children with Down syndrome? Like, did he go through it? Did you find it helpful? Did you find it helpful to a certain age? And what age, if they do serve you guys out there with it, what age do they typically stop doing it for you guys?
We have a program called ECI. It is free to people with disabilities up until the age of 3, because that's when they can start school,
Okay.
and then they get therapies through school. We didn't get to use ECI because Alexander was in the hospital a lot, but the one of the blessings of him being in the hospital was he got um, OT, PT, and speech daily, like twice a
That's
day
good.
sometimes, while we were in the hospital. And even when he was out, we did private therapy, and it was great. I think that especially with PT, he got to walking a lot faster than I feel like if he didn't have the therapy.
Hmm.
As far as speech, um, he has speech at school and it's only 30 minutes a week. So I feel like he could benefit from a lot more. And that's kind of on us because we have to find private speech for him.
Right.
um,
The private speech, would it be like outpatient or would they come to your home and do it?
we're looking for in-home, and there's I think two companies that do in-home, but they're packed.
Okay.
Um, I mean, they're booked full, so we're kind of on a waiting list for both of those.
Wow.
There's plenty of places where you can go to them, but just getting him out of school, getting him there, going through the therapy, and then getting him back to school, it's a lot of work, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
then he's
So he
missing out
does
on
go to
school.
public school?
Yes, he's in a
Okay.
public school.
And is it all day? Is it a few hours a day?
It's all day.
Okay. Do
And
they give him nap? Does he still
uh,
nap?
they stopped his naps recently.
Oh, wow. How does he
Yeah,
come home? How does he come home feeling?
tired. The bus
Yeah.
driver was like, is he not getting enough sleep? And so I messaged the teacher and I said, is he napping at school? And they're like, oh no, we just stopped naps because he's going to transition to first grade and they don't nap in first grade. So
Oh,
we took the
wow.
nap away. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sleeping on the bus.
Right. I find that Christian, he still needs his naps. If he does not get a nap, he is off the walls. So he definitely
Yeah.
still needs his naps.
Yes,
I
agreed.
couldn't imagine him being in school and not getting a nap. Um, how has your child's education been impacted by their diagnosis?
Well, he is technically in kindergarten, but he is put in what's called ECSE, early special, no, early early childhood special education. So
Okay.
it's a separate classroom, and it has kids from 3 years old to 6 years old, and they kind of work with them specifically because they have special needs. And then he'll get pulled out to his kindergarten class, but only for like PE or music, and things like that. And the way it impacts him is that he's not getting the the peer to peer encounter or interaction with typically developing kids his age. He's kind of in the classroom with three-year olds, 4-year olds, um, mixed in. So I
Yeah.
feel like he's not really getting um, everything that he needs from the
Right.
benefit of kindergarten. And I've seen him pick up some behaviors that I know he
Wow.
learned from school. Like, so a few of the kids, I think actually all of the kids except for him have autism as their disability. And
Okay.
so he's never been a kid that likes to stim, but he's done stuff like stimming kind of movements. And I'm like,
Mhm.
Alexander, what are you doing? And then he just starts laughing. And I'm like, oh, where did you get that from? Like, I think he's picking it up from school.
Right.
But, and not to say that it's a bad thing, but I feel like it's not really impacting him in a positive way to
Right.
be in a classroom that's isolating him from the learning experience that the other kids his age are benefiting from.
Yeah. We had went to we went to right before COVID happened. We had went on a few tours to about, I want to say 3 or 4 different schools, special needs schools, to see if we could potentially put Christian in, if it would benefit him in any way. And almost every school I would say that we have gone to, we didn't really like because of that. A lot of the kids were um special needs, but with, they were autistic. And we wanted Christian to actually go to benefit and learn a little bit more. But
Mhm.
we felt that if he went to any of those schools, that he would pick up probably habits that we didn't want him to pick up, or kind of like go backwards. Um, and stunt his growth. So we kind of like chose not to. There were other reasons why we chose not to put him in those schools. That was not the only reason, but those were some reasons why we didn't put him in, because I'm like, if we're going to put him in school, I'd rather him grow and learn off of kids who are older than him and he
Right.
could pull off of, not kind of like go backwards or pick up those bad habits or anything like that. So we chose not to, but then COVID happened anyway and everything was shut down. So I'm kind of glad we didn't even start that at all. Um, but those are kind of like my fears of, ever putting him into a school. I homeschool them now, but I'm sure he could benefit off of a program with, kids that were either older than him or anything like that. But I just kind of like get afraid that he's going to get, you know, it's going to stunt his growth, or he's going to go backwards or pick up those habits. And I'm just like, he doesn't need to pick up any more habits than we're dealing with now. So
Mhm.
we're kind of like on the standstill right now, kind of like just doing research. So yeah, I can definitely understand your point of view from that.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully first
um
grade is better.
yeah, and in first grade, I was going to ask, in first grade, will he be with special needs kids as well, or is it a mixture? How does it work for first grade?
I think that they still go based off of what they think, and that's the problem too. Like Alexander can do so many more things than they think he does because they're just evaluating him on the little play that he does in front of them. And
Yeah.
they use it's like an IQ kind of system where they rate his IQ based off of how he plays with a certain toy. And I think they do the same thing in first grade, but instead of ECSE, it's going to be ALE, which
Mm,
is just for older kids. But again, I'm not sure if that's a specific classroom like ECSE is, or if it's a resource. And
mm,
it should just be a resource. Like it shouldn't be, special education should not be a separate room
right.
from other kids. It should just be resources like an extra set of eyes to make sure that
Yeah.
he doesn't run out of the classroom, or extra set of hands to help him maneuver things, you know.
Right.
Um, but
I
I'm not really sure about how it's going to look yet.
Yeah. I think if we would have put I think when we were looking for for putting him into our town school, they did like the overall I forget how they call it. They did like when the teachers come in, they evaluate him.
Mhm.
Evaluations. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when he was going to go to pre-K, they were going to put him in like a smaller classroom with a few teachers, and it was not an all special needs class. There were kids without special needs because they don't have a high number of special needs, I guess, in this area, and it's a small school to begin with anyway. So I'm almost positive he would have benefited off those kids. But then we chose not to go that route because COVID did happen, so they shut everything down. But we went through all the evaluations for just the regular public school, and then they shut everything down. So we were just like, okay, I guess he's not going to go to anything because all the kids were being homeschooled at that time.
Yeah.
So right now we just do our own thing with him at home, and he has learned so much. That boy repeats so much of what we say. Some of the programs we have of we do this app with him where he's kind of like learning how to match things, or uh pick the same number, pick the same letter, where does this shirt go on the body, like things like that. So he's learning a lot of that. He's picking them off of his brothers because he sees everything that they do. A
Yeah.
lot of stuff that we say he's like repeating. He does sign some things too. So he won't verbalize some things, he'll just kind of like sign it because they were the first things that we've teached him with sign. So
Mhm.
some things he just sticks with signing, and some things he's now verbalizing to us. So yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And it helps that his brother's a little bit, just a little older than him, right?
Oh yeah, he has the one closest to him is he's gonna be 9 in like a couple weeks. So and they're always together, like they're always together, and he helps him a lot, um with even his apps. And he my son, the 9-year-old, he's learned sign language on purpose just to be able to communicate with
Oh.
Christian when we couldn't verbalize really much to him.
Mhm.
So he looks at him a lot as well.
That's
I'm
awesome.
hoping that, like, we've had we have our 7-week old now. So I'm hoping that when our 7-week old kind of like catches up, that he'll kind of like pick off of him at that point, and they kind of
Yeah.
like match each other. So I'm hoping they grow together in that way.
That's awesome.
How have you and your family advocated for your child's needs in various settings in regards to healthcare, education, etc., things like that?
Um,
Like, do you feel you've ever been, in a situation where you feel like you have to advocate for your child and kind of like push for him because maybe you weren't being heard, or maybe uh they thought less of him, and that he's more? Like, did you ever, feel like you were in any of those situations before?
not really. No, we have a good team of doctors that really listen to everything. Sometimes they want like one of our doctors was so laid back. They're like, yeah, whatever you want to do. It's your child. You know your child best. I'm like, but
Right.
you're the doctor. You need to tell me because anxiety. You just want your kid to go through everything to
Yeah.
be better. So they're really good at listening. As far as school education, I've I have had to push a little bit, like, no, I know what Alexander can do. He's a lot smarter than what he's showing you. So either ask me or reevaluate because I know he can do this and this. And we haven't
That's
had
good.
his meeting yet for next year, but I'm definitely going to do a lot more advocating for him in first grade because um, the last he's been in school for 3 years, which is
Mhm.
pretty cool, but it really hasn't benefited him extra, I think,
Mhm.
because they're kind of holding him back too much.
Yeah,
So I'm going to really have to advocate this next year for him.
that's good. That's real good. I think it's funny how they do a evaluation for like half an hour, and they go off of that And it could
Yeah.
be that, you know, your kid is having an off day, or they just don't want to play at that moment, or they don't want to do what they're asking at that moment, and it sucks
Hmm.
that they kind of like go based off of whatever it is in that one day for those 30 minutes, you know.
Right.
So
Yes.
I'm glad that, you know, you're pushing and you're going to be advocating for him more in first grade, in regards to how you know your child is and what's best for him.
Yeah, and when I've noticed, like when Alexander doesn't feel good, if he, even if he just has a little cold, like he's a little too congested, he does
Yeah.
not want to do anything. And if he's having one of those days, like you said, he's having an off day,
Yeah.
then they're not gonna get the information they need from him.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. On to our last question. What advice would you give to other parents who are raising a child with Down syndrome? Because this podcast, I created more for parents who just received like a diagnosis and kind of like don't know what to do, are kind of like feeling like, you know, the doctors may have given them a bad report, when our kids having Down syndrome is not a bad report, it is a blessing, you know. And I feel like a lot of times parents that are ignorant to Down syndrome and exactly what it is, and, you know, like you said earlier, your husband was never around anyone with Down syndrome, so to him it's like, whoa, what is happening, what is Down syndrome, like what is this, you know, we're confused. A lot of parents come into this being totally confused because they don't know anything at all about Down syndrome. They could be blaming themselves, what did I do to cause this, what could I have done differently throughout the pregnancy, or any of those questions, you know, they come up. And so I created this podcast, to be able to reach out to parents and individuals who even adopt kids with Down syndrome, and, you know, to be a light, to show them that there is joy in this journey and that it's not what people think it is or what people say it is. I know for me personally, they wanted me to abort my son. They told me over and over and over at every doctor's visit, I think you should abort your son. You're not going to have much longer to be able to abort. You should abort him now. He's going to come out with brain issues, with heart issues, pretty much like a vegetable, you know, just abort him, it's best for him. And I know you see my posts and stuff like that about Christian. He's great, he doesn't have heart issues, he doesn't have brain issues like they thought he would. And so I just wanted to be able to reach those families out there, you know, to tell them, hey, it's okay, it's gonna be okay, you're gonna get through this. And so what would you say to the parents who just received a diagnosis that their child could potentially or definitely does have Down syndrome? What would you say to those parents to encourage them?
Um, I would say that it's not as scary as those doctors make it seem. Um, and you will love your kid as much as you love
Yes.
your other kids if you have kids.
Amen.
And it's not about what other people think or feel, it's what's in your heart. And
Yes.
having Alexander has really enriched our lives. It hasn't put any detriment in our lives at all. And then the other thing, I was really lucky actually to have people that when Alexander was born, they did not apologize. They did not tell us. Of course, it was a surprise to everybody, so they didn't
Right.
ask us to abort. But my doctor wouldn't have anyway. She
That's
was
awesome.
actually upset because my water broke and he was ready to come on a Wednesday, and she wasn't in the hospital on Wednesdays.
Oh.
So she was like, I wanted to deliver him. I'm so
Oh.
sad.
I
And
love
she
that.
came in and she hugged me and she's like, everything's going to be perfectly fine. He's going to be a perfect child. And so
Oh,
I was really blessed to have her as
that's
my
awesome.
doctor. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I had the same doctor who delivered all of my boys, and he was amazing. He delivered Christian, and he was not the one who said for me to abort. It was the other doctors who I actually, because I would go to two different offices, one for my OB care, and one specifically for ultrasounds. Um, and it was those doctors where I would get the ultrasounds from that continue to tell me over and over to abort and all this
Oh,
craziness. Um, and I'm just glad and blessed that I really did not listen, and I kind of like just went with what I knew in my heart, and what my
yeah.
husband felt, to just continue on with, the pregnancy. And we are truly blessed. He has changed our lives for the better. And so,
Yeah.
as I said before, these kids are a blessing. And I'm just truly grateful to have met a community of so many parents, grandparents, and aunts and uncles and siblings that love our babies with Down syndrome. One more question I wanted to ask you was, how are your, if they're in your lives, parents, siblings, aunts and uncles, like all your extended family, how are they? How do they take, with the news? How do they support you, and things like that?
My husband's parents passed away, but my mom was very supportive, and she actually came to help with Alexander, and she just loves him a lot.
Hmm.
My brother, he lives in Houston, like 3 hours away.
Okay.
He he really doesn't seem to get involved very much. And when we do visit, I feel like he's a little standoffish because he doesn't know how to interact with him, but
Right.
we're working on that. And then my husband's brother, he just treats him like every other kid, like, you know, hanging out with him. So,
Have you ever been in public and kind of like got a stare or talking? Have you ever like experienced any of that?
yes. So on
Yeah.
the playground with the little kids are so open and vocal and hilarious sometimes.
Yeah.
But I've had a kid just flat out ask me questions. Why isn't he talking? And then I just kind of explain to the kid why he doesn't talk, and "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." And then they just start playing with him, and they
Oh,
just want to know the answer to the question, and then
I
they
think that's
play.
good.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's
then,
real good that he just acts,
yeah,
they're very curious, and they're
exactly.
very
Yes.
observant and very smart. So I love the fact that he questioned you, and you were able to kind of like give him wisdom and educate him on it.
Hmm.
That's good.
Yes. As far as adults, I can see, and I just told my husband this the other day. We were at the grocery store, and a lot of people just look at him with pity, and I just
Mm.
look at them and smile really big, and start talking to Alexander like, "Hey, how's it going?" Or not like that, but I just start
Yeah,
talking to Alexander as if nothing's happening, because
right.
it kind of, um, the mother bear in me kind of wants to come out. But I mean, you can
Absolutely.
see it in people's faces. They have pity face, or like, "Oh my gosh, that child," but
Yeah.
they just don't know him. They don't
Right.
know how much of a joy he is. So,
Yes, amen to that. I had someone, when Christian was probably maybe a few months old. They came to visit us, and it was when we owned our dance studio, and I shared Christian with them, and I was like, "Oh, here's my son," and I was like, "He has Down syndrome and stuff," and she was like, "Oh my God, I am so sorry," and she started crying, and I was like, "Oh, no, no,
wow.
no." I was like, "You don't have to apologize, and you don't have to cry." I was like, "My son is amazing. My son is a blessing, and God chose us to be his parents." I was like, "You do not have to be, feeling pity, or pity us, or feel sorry for us." I'm like, "He's
Right.
amazing." And I had
Hmm.
to, that is our job, to be like, "Hey, it's okay. Our child is amazing. You do not have to feel this way."
Hmm.
Because a lot of people, they may not know how to react, and they do, automatically they may feel like, um we're the ones who's drowning, and we're not. If anything, I would say that Christian has changed my life for the better, honestly.
Exactly,
You
yes.
know, but they don't see our everyday life. It's not always easy. It is a very rough
Mm-mm.
journey. um but it just takes some adjustments, you know, but
Right.
it's amazing.
Yes, it is.
It's amazing. So I just want to thank you for sharing your story with us. I'm grateful that you said yes, and you will be able to help someone out there, you know, say yes to continuing to have their child and continuing their pregnancy, of their child that could potentially have Down syndrome. So I just want to thank you for coming on our podcast today,
Thank you
and
for
I
having me.
hope that you continue to be a light to, you know, those parents out there who are searching and seeking for some answers.
Definitely, yes.
Thank you. Let's see.